Another way we can model in Cinema 4D is with generators, which we can find in this menu here. And we'll look at quite a few of these. So for easy access, I can grab this dotted line and tear that menu off as a floating palette. And we can even grab the dotted line on top of that, and we can dock it into any panels we already have. So I'll drop it along the bottom of the viewport where it's highlighting. And we'll take a look at some of these. We've already seen the subdivision surface, so let's try the extrude. But we'll need a spline for that first. So let's maybe use a star. And we can make this the classic star shape by decreasing the amount of points to 5. And to turn this 2D shape into a 3D mesh with some thickness, we can plonk it inside an extrude. So we need to put our spline inside as a child. And there's our extruded star. So I might switch to line mode so we can see the polygon edges a bit easier. And the extrude has a few other options in here. We can adjust the offset, which is how thick it's going to be, along with the subdivisions and some of the usual things. And we can also adjust the caps, which are the front and back faces this generates. So we could bevel the edges within the generator itself, which is pretty handy and definitely a tool you'll use a lot. So next, let's have a look at the loft. I'll just take the spline out of there and get rid of the extrude. And I'll grab the star, and I might just change the orientation of it so it's pointed upward instead. So we'll switch the plane to XZ. We'll also change the radius and give it a load more points to get a shape like this, which we can use to model the cup from the cupcake in the example render. So holding Control, let's drag upward to create a few copies. And the loft allows us to create a mesh hull from a series of splines. So if I bring one in and put all the star splines inside, it's now made a mesh around all the shapes where it blends from one spline to another. And this might be a bit more obvious if I first remove the cap from the top, which I can do over in the loft under the caps tab by disabling one of the caps. And I think this is the start cap. So let's try disabling that, which starts to give us our cup shape, but we seem to have lost the detail of the spiky star shape from our splines. And that's probably because our loft mesh doesn't have enough subdivisions to capture that detail. So back in there, under Object, let's increase the subdivision U. And we might need to bring that up higher than the slider will let us. And now we're getting that crumpled paper edge on our cupcake cup. And what's cool about the loft is if we grab the star at the top here and scale it up, because the mesh is from blending the splines from one to another, we can reshape our model just by playing with the individual splines. So I'll grab the second one, which is the middle of the cup, and scale that too, to give this a bit of a taper. And I might just give it a slightly rounded top, or I could even make the cup deeper by just moving this one up, and this guy back into the middle. And as easy as that, we've modeled a pretty complex shape. And we could even give this some thickness with another generator called Thicken. So with our loft selected, if I hold Alt when I click that, it becomes a parent of the loft and gives that shape some thickness. And it might be a tad too thick, so let's lower the thickness amount. And we can also offset the thickness as well, so we can push it out or pull it inward. So that's the cup done. So let's take a look at another generator here called the Lathe, which we can use to create the cake parts of the cupcake. So first, let's switch to the front view, and I'll grab the spline pen tool from over here, which will allow us to draw a spline. So I'm going to draw the profile of the cake part. So I'll start up here, click and drag to make a point and adjust the curve of it. Then I'll do another point down here to make that side of the muffin. Then I'll put another one over here and try to get it right on the center line, which is pretty important for this effect. And you'll see why in just a second. So I better grab my move tool and make sure those points are where they need to be. If I grab this point, to make sure that it's right at the world 0 point along the x-axis, we can go to Window and Coordinate Manager. And if I move this point and make sure I've only got that spline selected, we can now see the coordinates of the selected point down here. And along the x-axis, you can see that that point is not 0. So let's manually set that here. And now that's perfectly on the center line. So let's do the same for the other endpoint. So I'll grab that, and we could do exactly the same again, but another way we could do it is if we first solo that to make it easier to see, this time we can use snapping instead, which we can enable by clicking here. Then this icon is the settings for that. So let's make sure grid workplane snapping is active. Then if I go back out here, when I move this point around, it'll snap to the grid like so. And you can see that's also right on the 0 point along X as well. So let's disable solo mode and head back to the perspective view. And with our cake profile shape, we can hold Alt and give that a lathe. And that basically does an extrusion in a radial fashion around a particular axis. So very easily we get our cake. And I can go back to the spline and tweak this however I like to change that lathe shape. And I can also turn off snapping now as well. So you can make this any shape you like. And I might just make it a little shorter. And I think that looks fine. And we'll be adding the icing to this in a later lesson, but I just want to show you a few more generators first. So let's grab all of this and delete it. And we'll take a look at another generator you'll use all the time, called the sweep. So back in the front view, I'll draw another spline, this time with the sketch tool, which lets you draw freestyle. So you could use a Wacom pen for this, but I'll just draw a wavy shape with my mouse, like so. And if it's not as smooth as you'd like, we can right click and grab the spline smooth tool and just paint over it to smooth it out. Then back in the perspective view, with a sweep, we can basically extrude along a spline. So we've got our spline path sorted, but we'll also need a profile spline to define the shape of the extrusion. So we'll grab another spline. Let's just use a circle. And it's probably a bit too big by default, so I'll shrink it down to a size that will match the scene a bit better. Then I'll add the sweep. And we need to put the profile shape in first at the top of the hierarchy, then the spline we're sweeping along in under that. And we can create shapes like this. And there's some cool things we can do inside the sweep as well. Down in the Object tab, we can adjust the scale. So if I hold Control and click on this line that represents the full length of the sweep, we can use this to taper the ends, like so. Or we can switch out the profile spline and get a completely different shape. So if I grab our old friend, the star spline, and scale that down too, I can delete the circle and switch it with the star. And we get the star shape along there instead. Cool. So let's trash that and do one more little modeling project. Off to the side here, I've got a vector image, which is just an Adobe Illustrator file of a YouTube Creator Award, which I used to create this object in the example render. But let's see how we can bring in vector images and create models from them. The first option would be with the vector import generator here, which lets you import a vector image. So you can select one from your computer or just drag one in here directly. And it'll come in like so. But a quicker, easier way is to just drag the file directly into the viewport and OK this. And it'll automatically create a new scene and a vector import generator for you. And there's a few options we can play with here as well. We can change the size, offset the layers, which will depend on the layers you've got set up in the Illustrator file, and some other offset and extrusion controls. But we can also grab this and hit C on the keyboard to turn the generator into editable objects, which gives us some nulls with extrude generators inside, which was the first generator we looked at. And we can now manipulate those individually. But I might grab both of them and adjust their offsets to make them thicker. And I want to cut the play button shape out of the award. So we can do that with another generator called the Boolean. So I'll bring that in. And if we take a look at that guy, the Boolean operation is set to union by default, which combines shapes. But as we want to cut one shape from another, we need to set this to subtract mode. So if I move the rectangular award object into the Boolean and the play button in under that, it'll cut that shape from the other. And we can create complex shapes easily like this. And if I move the button object, we can adjust this live in the viewport, which is really cool. So let's get rid of this other stuff now And another cool thing we can do in C4D is to use generators with deformers. So if I put the Boolean into a null, which we can do by hitting Alt-G and pop this open, if we wanted to give the edges of our model a bit of a bevel, we can grab a bevel deformer. And for this to affect the resulting mesh created by the Boolean, we just need to put it inside the null at the same level. And I'll scale the bevel down quite a bit with the offset, and maybe add some subdivisions as well. And if we get some funny lines appearing on the surface like this, it's probably just an issue with the Phong angle, which we can fix by enabling the two Phong options down here. And that is our model done. And because generators are non-destructive, we can still edit this without baking it down to an editable mesh. And I also use this exact method to model the laptop and the smartphone in the example render as well. So that is using generators for modeling in Cinema 4D. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions or if there's anything you'd like me to cover. And don't forget, you can find the full free course as well as some more advanced content and resources at cgshortcuts.com/jumpstart.